WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems. Today we're a little bit different. We're going to be talking a little bit about traffic safety and trying to keep people safe on the road. And with us is a guy I've known for a long time now, Art Kinsman. Arthur, good morning.
Hello, John. Nice to hear your voice.
Well, let's take a little trip down memory lane here with you. I first met you when you came to work at AAA, but prior to that, you worked for the governor's office, right?
That's right. My first job out of college was working for the Executive Office of Public Safety, and that was way back in the Dukakis administration. So I don't know if I'm dating myself, but
he had a great unibrow.
I picked that out of a book on government because I said, geez, like, I bet you could do some good with, like, safety stuff. And so that's kind of how I got into it and talked my way into a job there. But and then I ended up, it was great working with you for, almost 20 years with AAA. And I just, I guess I'll just say not that your listeners need to know what kind of guy you are, because I think they can tell. But, I have to say I really learned a lot from you in my years at AAA, and just your willingness to, always have time for members. And I think you're doing the same thing right now on your radio show. You're kind of helping people one person at a time. And, just taught me never be too busy for not just a AAA member, but for anybody who's either seeking automotive advice or something that might improve their safety situation out on the road.
Well, you make me sound a lot better than I really am, and I appreciate that. and then we got reacquainted again because you were involved with the right to repair legislation, and we worked together both on and off with AAA for that.
Yep.
And then you moved on to highway safety and eventually over to the feds, and because of you and at your time your coworker Diana Guglietta, who was also my coworker prior to going to work at DOT, somehow I ended up with the National Highway Traffic Safety Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was because of you guys, so I really appreciate that too.
Yeah,
and now,
it was my pleasure to nominate you, because I like it. I mean, just like I said, there's so much that goes into this, and the traffic safety world it's like a small one, but it's a big one too. But everyone kind of knows each other in some fashion. But I think it's just like I said. I'll just reiterate the way you helped, one person at a time, but also in greater numbers in your work through the Car Doctor and your radio shows and columns. It really does have a cumulative impact.
Oh, thank you. And now you're at NETS. Tell us what NETS is.
Yeah, NETS stands for Network of Employers for Traffic Safety, and what we are, it's a nonprofit coalition of about 110 companies and organizations, and all different business sectors. From insurance to agriculture to utilities. It covers a wide swath, but basically it's companies with fleets, both large and small vehicles, or have a number of employees out on the road, like pharmaceutical companies, for example. And the idea is we want to create more focus from employers on traffic safety, because it affects their bottom line for sure. When an employee gets in a crash, that's an employee that's out of the office. There could be other costs involved in the crash, but also just on a human level, you should care about your employees. So I think that's one thing I've learned about the companies involved with us. They really do care about the human side of it. But there's also a considerable cost to not paying attention to that. And I think there's also, the work we do. What I see it as is it's a benefit because there's so many people out on the roads commuting or doing business, going from point A to point B. It's like, but they're all out on the roads with people who are, out on the road for whatever reason. So, if we can have an impact or an influence on those folks who are working in their vehicles, then it's a benefit to everybody out on the road.
So, to kind of take it in a little bit closer, as an example, AAA has hundreds of drivers out on the road, and our super producer, Jesse, who's rather a Renaissance man who has a very successful podcast and now a music studio, but also has a pizza shop with delivery drivers. Does it trickle down as far as small business like that with a few folks that deliver pizzas?
Well, sure. I don't think it really matters the size of the company. I mean, obviously, if you've got tens of thousands of drivers out on the road, like I said, pharmaceutical or insurance companies or whatever, then, you have an opportunity to impact a lot more people. But, I think one thing, I'd really like to see, and I think that this is, I'll just mention that the United Nations and the World Health Organization are, have been working this summer to push for a significant acceleration, maybe not the right word, of global road safety efforts. And they really, it's what I've come out of those meetings is that, employers are a critical but, sometimes underutilized part of the whole of society strategy. And so when I listen to, I spent those meetings really listening, trying to understand what's going on in different countries. It goes well beyond our borders. It's a global issue. And the one thing I heard over and over and over is from people in government is governments can't do it alone. And they need employers to be involved, to have that influence they have over their employees for positive, keep them out of trouble on the roads, push, have them wear their seatbelt. Don't be surfing LinkedIn or texting business or having intensive business calls on the road. Because, what we found, and we'll get to this, is we did a study recently, NETS did on cost of crashes, and, distracted driving is the primary reason for employer-related crashes. And I think that even though we can't, from the study, we can't say, well, it's because they were talking on, with their boss on a conference call. But we know, and from all your years in traffic safety, that just because you're hands-free doesn't mean it's safe, especially if you're in complex, distracting conversations. So anyway, that's a lot. That's a mouthful there, but I'll let you ask another question.
But you're right, though. I mean, people think, well, I have my phone on Bluetooth, I'm hands-free, but yet they don't remember the last 20-minute drive home because they were having a conversation with their spouse or their boss or whatever the case is. So they are not paying attention to what they should be doing, and that's the only thing they should be doing when they're behind the wheel is just drive.
That's right. And, I found, I'll give an example locally. When I was with NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, for the last decade or so, one of the things that I noticed was, and I think that's what led me to NETS, is that I felt like, government can have so much influence over people to practice safe driving. But, that it gets complicated because people, we're in a time when people, often are resistant to government messaging for whatever reason. Not if this isn't a political statement, it's a fact. It's like people get tired of, the government telling them what to do. That's why I think the leadership from credible companies, and one example I can use locally is, Paul Sullivan from Sullivan Tire ran a whole series of advertisements on, Red Sox and Bruins and all their, they do extensive advertising, and they did a really nice campaign on child passenger safety, making sure the kids are buckled up properly, make sure they're in the right kind of car seat, and also that they're, the suggestion that really everyone needs to be buckled up in the car to protect, those occupants from striking each other. And, you want the whole family to get from point A to point B safely. So that's an example of corporate leadership where he didn't have to do that, but he did. And it's like, and it just, that kind of campaign, it's just, it provides that necessary air cover and positive influence on safety messages rather than the old, I think we remember the old days in the 80s where it was like, a state trooper with reflector sunglasses pointing at you saying, I'm going to give you a ticket. Like that was the type of campaign that used to be out. It was very heavy law enforcement. But I think even law enforcement doesn't want that anymore. They kind of, I think it's, what we realize is traffic safety. It's enforcement is a cornerstone, education is a cornerstone. All that's normal stuff but we need to get more people involved and show leadership in this area because it's such a huge, it was still at almost 40,000 people killed in 2024, and that was a decrease. So that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and the idea that you never really get anywhere when you force people to do stuff. It's when you tell them they have to do it. The way it works is when they want to do it because they understand the facts behind it and go, this makes sense. And something as simple as buckling a seatbelt, you and I both know we've met all kinds of people over the years that said, I never buckle my seatbelt because, I could go off the road and into a lake and I could drown and I couldn't get out of my seatbelt.
Yep.
Yeah. And, the reality of it is if you go off the road over a bridge and into a lake, chances are you're going to be knocked unconscious because you weren't wearing your seatbelt. So, the idea that seatbelts save lives is, absolutely true. And people have come to realize that makes sense. And not because you're going to get a ticket, but because that seatbelt's going to save your life.
That's right. And you're absolutely, and I think your example's correct too. It's like, or if you don't end up in a lake, which is very unusual, the chances if you're not buckled in, you're not going to land in a haystack on the side of the road safely if you get ejected from your vehicle. So it's I think the most effective way to think about it or messaging is to just be like, what's your responsibility as a person, to your family members, to your mom, your dad, your kids, your partner, your wife, whatever it is, do you want to put them through that? And I think, that's a personal way of looking at what we talk about at NETS, which is, it's like, take care of your employees, reduce the bottom line costs and incredible inconvenience of having people out of work and vehicles off the road and all that stuff. But it's like, on an individual level, it's the same for family. Incredible inconvenience to have your car in the shop, to be in the hospital, to have family members have to take care of you, maybe for the rest of your life. Anybody who's spent any time with someone who's brain injured from a crash, the thing that always struck me is like, those folks know exactly what they were like before the crash, and they know what they're like now. They're not like mentally impaired in that regard, that they can't understand. People sometimes presume they don't, based on the way they act or how they appear, that they're not understanding that. They understand and they can articulate it. And it's really, that's one of the things that, as the years went on in traffic safety, I just, had tremendous just impact on me is listening to folks who had brain injuries, and they can tell you, they say, this is what I could do before, this is what I can't do now, this is what I struggle with, and it's really shocking, but it's a necessary thing to know, so I think it's all of us who are privileged to be, able to do everything we want to do physically, and why do you want to squander that? We're just simply not wearing a seatbelt. And I agree with you. I think the time is kind of, I spent a lot of years at AAA lobbying for tougher seatbelt laws and all this stuff. And in, Massachusetts, we've got a secondary enforcement law, which is a little bit weaker than a lot of states. But, you can spend all your time trying to get a law passed, or you can spend time just trying to, deliver the message in a positive way.
Educate people for the right reasons. What does NETS do with impairment?
Well, that one of the things I wanted to talk about was we just released a cost of crashes report, and that is we found that motor vehicle crashes cost at least U.S. employers about $62 billion a year. A lot of that, a big chunk of that is health-related fringe benefit costs. But, there's also liability, legal expenses, there's extensive workplace disruption, lost productivity, et cetera. Interestingly enough, like one of the things that I found most interesting about the results was that employers only cover about 17% of the total costs of those crashes. So the rest goes to society, and that's, that's extensive as well. So it's not just an employer problem. It's everybody who might end up on disability or, a long-term care situation, that's a cost to society. It's not something that, just the employer picks up and you don't have to worry about. So, but anyway, getting back to, we found that distracted driving was probably the predominant reason for employer-related crashes, but impaired driving was also a big chunk of it. So I think that's something that, there has to be very clear workplace policies about not just wearing your seatbelt, but, whether it's drugs or alcohol, but even over-the-counter stuff, being aware of the drowsy driving and other impairments that can result from stuff you can just pick up at CVS, without a prescription. So those are all things that we try to put into it with having, good workplace policies. And really, I think at any level in the whole traffic safety chain, whether it's a police department, whether it's a company with a fleet, or whether it's a governor of a state, nothing matters more that I've seen than leadership from the top. People, when you've got leaders who buy into traffic safety and the benefits of keeping people safe, that's when you really get results. Like you see it in, I'll use Connecticut as an example. Like they have a governor there who's very, very big on traffic safety, who's like out front on all the programs, and they have one of the best traffic safety data systems in the country. Like really impressive stuff that police can use every day to figure out, what's happening in very specific spots, and then they can devise ways to combat that. So, when you have a go back to the pizza shop. It's like it makes a big difference if the person who runs the pizza shop sets some expectations, about how the driving goes, how the deliveries go. Not just customer service, but get there safely and get back safely. And that's so. There's really a lot that it's no different than being a parent and setting expectations for your children as to when you're learning to drive, this is our expectations of what's going to happen. Nothing wrong with that.
If people want to learn more about NETS or want to become involved with it, whether it's a big company or a small company, where do they go to find out more information?
Yeah, our website is actually easy to remember. It's trafficsafety.org, all one word, trafficsafety.org. And you can, welcome to go there, or look for Art Kinsman on LinkedIn, or NETS, Networks of Employers for Traffic Safety on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me an invite. Love to keep you up to date on what we're up to. But yeah, that's And if anybody out there has a company who's listening, who's interested, joining Nets is actually, fairly, reasonable in terms of, it's based on the size of your company. So a small company who might not have a lot of money for a membership fee, we scale it based on the size of the company. So, I think it's relatively affordable. And we've got a conference coming up in September in Indianapolis, our Strength in Numbers conference, September 15th through the 17th. So it's, again, anyone who's interested, go to the website, check out the conference details. It'd be great to get you involved.
And now it's time to brag a little bit. I understand your son just released an album.
Yeah, I think it's his like fourth album. He's a senior at Silver Lake High School in Kinston, Mass, and he's kind of a jack of all trades musically. He plays guitar, drums, piano, banjo, musical saw. I'm not joking. And so he's really into theater, drama, and but particularly writing and playing music. So. Yeah,
now you're also a guitar player, but you were sort of more punky pop kind of music. Is Everett the same way?
No, he's actually a lot different than me. Like I got to say, I didn't really teach him. I gave him the instruments. I said, here, do what you want, and I really didn't try to steer him in a direction. He's much more into like the traditional acoustic. He loves Richard Thompson and Nick Drake and Elliott Smith and all these like Paul Simon. That's his bag. And I was always more of a rock and roll guy. But I still play. I still play in a band. Once we're our drummer's away for the summer, so we've been taking a break. But I still get out there and play in a few stages around the South Shore.
Hey, Jesse, you want to fill in on the drums with Art?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
I said you want to fill in on the drums with Art and his band?
Oh, I could. That'd be fun.
Yeah, see, there we go. Check out Jesse Wilkins' School of Music in Whitman. So there you go.
Oh, I will. Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. Yes, okay, yep.
See, Jesse, your music school's already famous.
That's right.
It's all good. Why don't we, Art, I want to thank you for taking a little time out of your Sunday and joining us. And if people want to find Everett's music, where do they go?
They can, oh boy, it's, I think he's on all just look him up on Instagram and all that stuff. And you can find his links to all his music. So, just buckle up. It's quite a, I mean that from a theoretical point of view.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild stuff. But it's,
there we go.
He's a great kid.
There you go. All right, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks. Okay.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. If you want to talk to us about your car and your car problems, or maybe the best car you ever owned, give us a call at 781-837-4900, and we'll talk to you and see what's on your mind. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Ford Expedition that has gotten me around this week. Kind of a long story. We'll get to that when we get back. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
In a world parched for excitement, one drink will emerge. Twisted Tea, the refreshing thrill ride of flavor. Recreating its classic role as the hard iced tea that goes down smooth. Twisted Tea doesn't just taste like real iced tea, it's made with real brewed tea and a 5% kick of alcohol. Taste the adventure with Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Keep it twisted.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
Ready to order?
Yes.
We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Get ready for the South Shore's best dad and daughter duo in the building business. The Bethany Builders Podcast on WATD. Each week, the Bethany Builders crew, Chris Bethany, Steve Burton, Christian Fourier, and Sophia Bethany discuss ongoing building and remodeling projects, sports, fun, and more. Listen live or watch them on the Bethany Builders YouTube or Facebook page. The Bethany Builders Podcast is sponsored by Bethany Builders of Duxbury, Koopman Lumber, and Trex Decking.
The Bethany Builders Podcast, Sunday afternoons, 12:15 to 1 on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program at 95.9 WATD. In between commercials, we're talking about guitars and playing guitars with plastic bags over your head in the woods, but, well, not over your head, but, anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, don't recommend that. Exactly. Well, this week, I had my nephew's kids with us for the week, so I needed more room, is what it came down to. My little SUV I just bought, not enough room, needed to go bigger. So when I rarely ever in the 30 years I've been reviewing cars have I ever said, can I get something with more seats in it? Because it never usually works out that way. When when I want something with a lot of space, I get a Mini Cooper. When I want something that's easy to park, I get a Chevy Suburban. Just the way it works. Well, fortunately, the folks at AutoMotion International and Ford Motor Company said, well, we have a Ford Expedition. Not just any Expedition, it's the Expedition Tremor. And it's kind of an intriguing kind of mix for the Expedition. Expedition's a full-size SUV. So, a little bit bigger than a Ford Explorer, not quite as big as the old Ford Excursion, but you take a vehicle as best known for putting a lot of people and cargo in it, and then you give it a more adventurous look and feel with, underbody cladding and off-road tires and stuff like that. So it kind of broadens that Expedition's appeal by blending together the passenger accommodations and some real, ability to go off-road. I think the greatest strength is in its interior packaging. Few vehicles, maybe Tahoe, Sequoia, Armada, are close, but in my opinion, a little bit smaller. On the bigger side, Suburban, Yukon XL, something like that. So I think in that sort of tweener category, so not quite a Suburban, but bigger than something like a Sequoia, the Expedition, I think, comfortably fits in that ability to transport large families, groups of adults, combinations of passengers and gear. The 3-row layout gives you a lot of room. Like all 3 rows, it's not that easy to get into the back, but Ford did a pretty good job. You hit a button on the seat flips, the second row seat flips all the way forward, so you can scurry back there pretty easily. I tried it. It wasn't bad, and there's actually third row seating is pretty good. I mean, I was able to sit back there and be reasonably comfortable. I don't know if I'd want to go on a 2,000-mile journey with it, but I think it's pretty good. The second row seats slide and recline. It makes, again, access to the rear pretty easy. Last night we went to, my neighbor invited us. He had extra tickets to go to the Melody tent where Three Dog Night was playing. Jesse, do you have any idea who Three Dog Night is?
I've heard of them, but I can't name a song.
Yeah. Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog?
I do know that song.
There you go. See, you know one. You're all set.
I can now name a song.
Yeah. And apparently there's one dog left. The one of the founding members who's like 84 years old, and apparently they still play 60 to 80 shows a year. which is pretty phenomenal. But anyway, so we went and we took the Expedition. My neighbors were very comfortable in the back seat, rear air conditioning, so they could adjust the climate control. They all felt good. Rear seats, third row seats can fold down, accommodate cargo. With all the seats in place, plenty of room for extra people and their stuff. So pretty good. You could put a fair amount of luggage behind the third row. If you needed to, all works out good. The Tremor treatment adds this extra layer of capability, unique suspension tuning, all-terrain tires, really knobby off-road looking tires. I have to admit to that. Increased ground clearance. It seems like they moved it up maybe an inch, maybe. Protective skid plates, so if you do go off-road, you don't have to worry too much about banging into things and doing damage. Uses a turbocharged EcoBoost V6, plenty of torque, plenty of horsepower. It should be able to go anywhere without any problems. Tow a heavy boat or camper, should be able to do that. Could you go in deep sand and muddy tracks? Well, it has terrain capability for all of that, and it makes it kind of nice and easy. Twist a knob, nice and easy. It also has Ford's backup system, so if you're not good at backing up a trailer, you don't have to touch the steering wheel. You just turn this little knob. I've yet to try that out in real life. I did it in a display years ago. I think it was at the International Motor Press Association test day, and they had a truck with a trailer, and you got to back it up. And I'm like, some of that stuff is a little staged, so you never know. I've always wanted to try it with my little boat because I have a little boat that sits on a little trailer, and if anybody's ever towed any kind of a little trailer, they know that short wheelbase trailers are hard to back up because they turn very quickly. So the smaller the trailer, the harder it is to back up. Love to try one of these days with this type of system. Would I like to see more knobs and buttons? I always like to see more knobs and buttons. Basic tasks such as adjusting climate control and navigating certain vehicle functions require too many taps on the screen. There is a volume knob, thank goodness, for the radio. Couple of basic buttons for other things, but a lot of things built into the infotainment system. Kind of an odd dash setup. It has this big LCD screen where you would expect the speedometer to be, and then you have a separate middle infotainment screen. So sometimes you have two navigation screens up. You have one right in front of you and one down in the center console. It just seems odd, but you can switch that to whatever you're listening to on the radio. Just seems a little weird. Despite some of the things that I don't like frequent chimes and steering corrections and sometimes a little too much intervention by the vehicle, most of those features can be adjusted. So the overall experience, it may annoy some drivers who might want to stay more focused on their own driving versus letting the car kind of do it. You can balance it all out. So, but the Expedition Tremor, I think, bottom line is it's an appealing choice for somebody that wants a big full-size vehicle that's not afraid to go off-road. It has legitimate off-road potential. I didn't take it anywhere other than a couple of dirt roads. That was about it. If Ford could simplify the infotainment interface a little bit more and restore a few more physical controls, I'd be happy. And maybe tone down the electronic nannying system a bit. That would make me happy. But, these systems, when you adapt to them and work with them, they can improve safety. So it's a balance, and I understand that. But if you're looking for a highly capable family kind of adventure vehicle that can fit 6 or 7 people, they can carry their stuff, they can pull their camping trailer or horse trailer maybe, or boat, the Ford Expedition is something to look at. How much does the Expedition cost, you may ask? Well, this one had a MSRP of, I think it was $87,000. So again, cars are expensive. the average price of a new car today is around $55,000. I just bought a new car. It wasn't anywhere near that price, but that's the average new car price today. If you want to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900. I did something interesting with my car this week, the new car. It has Blue Link, which is a system that allows you to interact with your vehicle over your phone, and you can use, apparently it's a lifetime system, mostly, except for maps, which I think it gets 3 years worth. But other than that, it's a lifetime system, and you can use your phone like a remote control, so you can lock and unlock the car with your phone. You can remote start your car with your phone. So if, for instance, it was a hot night last night, and while I was sitting in the Melody tent, in theory, I could have used my phone and started up my car that was parked, out in one of the parking lots at the Melody tent, and cooled it off and got into a nice cool car. Well, I didn't have my car. I had the Expedition, which does have remote start, but not from thousands of yards away. But you could do it with your phone. Also, what's kind of nice about the Blue Link system, like a lot of cars today, it'll actually send you issues. If there's a code, something wrong with the vehicle, they'll tell you, oh, there's this, and it actually tell you what the code is, which I thought was pretty neat. And that was really the only reason I wanted to sign up for it. I wanted to see what technical information it could provide to me, and it did a really good job. I fortunately haven't had anything go wrong, but I was watching a video one day of a repair shop who was fixing a problem with I believe it was a Kia, that the dealer said, well, we can't fix it because we don't see anything wrong with it, and it only happened every once in a while. So the shop actually swapped to control valves for the variable valve timing. And the code first came up that it was bank 1, valve 1. They swapped them left to right, so bank 1 to bank 2. And then a month later, it showed up bank 2 was the problem, bank 1 was fine. So that told you that valve they swapped was bad. But the woman who owned the car said, oh, I just got the new code. The car's not running good. Here's what it is. It showed the other bank. So when I saw that video, I was like, this Blue Link, and I don't know what Kia calls it, probably something similar to that. I'm like, this is a pretty neat system. So I think I want to make sure I have it activated. So it took a little while to get it activated because I've owned Hyundai vehicles in the past, and I guess I must have registered them somewhere. So it kept kicking out, well, your system, you don't have this system, or whatever the case is. But it was just one of those kind of oddball sort of things that I ended up calling the Blue Link phone number. They tried to work through it with me. They saw there was an issue. They said, we will have somebody call you back within 3 to 5 days. The next morning, they called me and said, oh, we understand you have a problem. And then went 15 minutes later, it was all activated. Everything worked the way it was supposed to. So we were good to go. Why don't we take another break? When we come back, we'll talk about some of the questions that came in this week. We got some pretty interesting ones, and expanding my Q&A reach just a little bit. We'll talk about that when we come back, too. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. Phone lines are open at 781-837-4900. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
I'm U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We all seem to be in a rush these days, from work to driving our kids around. But when you're behind the wheel, please do not speed. A few minutes saved by going faster is never worth the risk. So follow the speed limit, enjoy the drive, maybe bring some snacks for the kids, and know that along the way, you're getting quality time with your family.
Paid for by NHTSA.
This is the story of the one.
the one who keeps multiple buildings running smoothly day after day. Plumbing that flows, HVAC that hums, cleaning supplies that keep surfaces sparkling. That's why she counts on Grainger. With easy reordering online and 24/7 support, Grainger helps her keep the products she needs on hand. So shelves stay stocked and buildings stay ready. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston pro sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for The Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Why didn't that sound right when I said it? Anyway, some of the stuff that came in this week, in fact, I got a little bit distracted and was a little bit late coming into the studio, we'll call it today. Got Jesse a little bit worried. He's like, where is he? He usually calls in at like quarter of. I was answering a car question. Somebody with a 2018 Volvo S60, and it had, I think, 75,000 miles on it. And they were at the dealer, and the dealer said, you're going to need some new tires, which they agreed to. They were there for an oil change and something else. And they said, you really need a timing belt. And they didn't tell me what they were quoted for price, but their question was, do I really need it, and is it worth doing it at this point in life with the vehicle? I kind of consider a 2018 vehicle still fairly new in my mind. I mean, even though it is 8 going on 9 years old, it still seems relatively new to me. But the reality of it is, Volvo says do the timing belt at 150,000 miles or 180 months. I don't know why they say 180 months, but that's the way they explain it. So I had to think how many months that was. And I believe it's like 15 years or something. So I think they're good. No need to do it.
There's going to be some mom out there. That's how they describe their kid. Yeah, he's 180 months now. You know how they do that? Like after like 12 months, like just say he's one. But,
yeah.
Oh, he's 17 months. Like, hey, I don't want to count. I can't. I don't want to do the math in my head.
Yeah. That was my thing when I looked it up. I'm like 180 months. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, just tell me the years.
yeah, exactly. And I fortunately it was 150,000 miles, and they didn't have it in kilometers because then I'd be even worse. So,
nobody knows what kilometers are.
Yeah.
There was a T-shirt that just said like WTF is a kilometer. I'm like, I should wear that next time I'm in Europe.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who knows?
No, nothing like aggravating the locals.
That's right.
All I know is 100 kilometers is 60 miles an hour.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Most of the cars out in because I'll be in Greece next week, but the cars they're in kilometers, but they also have like above it like a little miles per hour thing, so you can have a general idea of how fast you're actually going if you're a dumb American like me.
Yeah. And even if they didn't have that, if the sign said 50 kilometers and all you could look at is kilometers, so you'd be like, okay, I guess I'll go 50. I don't know what a kilometer is, but I know it says 50 here and it says 50 there, so I'll go 50.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised in the UK that they've used miles per hour out there, at least in the parts that we were in.
Yeah, and they also say things like, something costs like 20 grand, which is not what I expect them to say,
In terms of and it means the same thing, like that's 20,000?
And I don't know if it means like 20,000 pounds. I don't know.
I would assume it does.
Yeah, you would have to think. But, I mean, the world's a weird place. What can I say? And you just sort of threw out there, next week I'm going to be in Greece.
I am.
And what part of Greece are you going to be in?
We're starting on the island of Samos, which is really close to Turkey, and then we're going over to Kalimnos for the second week.
Now, do you have family or that's there, or you just go there because
the wife has family that's there. Yeah, and so her father lives in a different part of Greece, but he's probably going to visit. He lives in the city, Thessaloniki, and then
the Greek they got a different name for everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, most places have a different name for towns and cities. But yeah. So that's the plan. So it'll be fun. Then we're gonna try to take an island or take a boat and island hop a little bit as much as we can.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, you and the kids and maybe your wife rented a boat or something, didn't you?
We did. Yeah, that was we were in Crete, and you rent a boat. You can go to all these like little beaches that cars just can't get to because it's you'd have to drive down a cliff, so you can get to a bunch of exclusive spots if you rent a boat. But if it's a little bit windy, they don't give you a boat out there, so it's really weather dependent.
And the water looked beautiful.
They're very, very much so.
Yeah. And more importantly, and I don't remember what town you said it was in, do you get to hang around the table with the smoking guys?
Oh, man. That's my spot, but that's not the part of Greece that we're going to go to. Yeah, I get my, we call it... The name of the place is called Tokatialo, which just translates to the something else. So, but whatever. But yeah, we won't be seeing those guys this time, unfortunately, because we're in a different part of Greece. They're on the mainland. We're going to the islands.
And you got invited over because you just learned enough language to get by?
Yeah, that and our rigorous schedule of attending the same exact little bar every single night. And it was like, this was a spot where there was like 2 old dudes sitting outside. Me and my brother, because we're idiots, we drove by. We're like, that's our spot every single night. And then by night 3, they're like, these guys aren't going anywhere. These dumb Americans are here to stay. So they started opening their arms to us, and it was great. Yeah.
That was good.
It's a good way to learn the language because we're in a small village where nobody speaks English, and we're both trying to learn how to speak Greek. And so it was a good experience because you're really immersed in this, and there's no choice but to try out your terrible Greek skills and sharpened a little bit.
And you don't do it like a bad American. You just don't talk louder.
No, that doesn't actually work. Yeah. So slowing down is good. If you're speaking too fast and they can't understand you, if you slow it down, that helps. But speaking louder doesn't help with the translation.
No, I was in the Dominican once, and there was this woman and all she did was when they didn't understand her English, all she did was talk louder. And I'm like, calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes off a little bit rude, actually.
I kind of thought so.
Who would have thought?
I know. Anyway, back to car stuff. This person says, this is not a car question, but maybe you can answer it for me anyway. I recently went and had my motorcycle inspected. All went well until we got to the tires. The gentleman doing the inspection said my tires were too old. He said they were manufactured in 2019 and needed to be replaced. He said there's no cracks on the sidewalls. There was more than enough tread. I checked the mileage on the tires. They only had 3,000 miles on them, so they're 7-year-old tires with 3,000 miles. The bike has always been garaged. I just not ridden it in a few years. My question is, can a bike fail inspection for out-of-date tires? This doesn't make any sense to me. In order to replace both tires, mounted and balance would cost $800. Well, I looked up. I wasn't sure where you were from because I get emails from people who listen to the podcast, listen to WATD online, read the column in Boston.com or the Providence Journal or New York Newsday, or there's half a dozen other papers in New York, or maybe even the Quincy Sun or the Blackstone Valley Express. Could be any one of those. They didn't mention where it was. But I didn't see any mention of, in any of the states I checked, Mass, New York, I think, what else I checked? Yeah, maybe just Mass, New York, and Rhode Island, any mention of tire age. All it says is you reject a vehicle if the tire has cuts or bruises or hardening or cracks or flat spots. But if the tires are in fact old and say more than 10 years old, I would replace them. Kind of a general rule is you should start to, whether it's a motorcycle or not, you should start to look at your tires when they get to be 6 or so years old. Look for dry rot and cracks. The old Volkswagen that we had Michelin tires on it. They were 7 years old. Beautiful tread, terrible cracks. All weather cracked and just terrible looking. So not a good thing. So I would, if it was my vehicle and the tires were more than 10 years old, I would spend, and you want to go ride a motorcycle, I would want to spend $800 on new tires. Because getting a flat tire on a motorcycle while you're on it, not a good thing. So, it's bad enough if you get a flat tire on a car while you're driving. But you got 3 other tires. You only get 2 tires on a motorcycle. It's not good. This person says, I've always heard pretty consistently that only blue coolant should be used in Hondas and a few other imports. But I've also seen some universal green coolants, he mentions Prestone and Peak, that are fine to use as well, even with the new radiator installation, as long as they're silicate-free and borate-free. Do you believe I can cause damage if the universal green coolant is used instead of the Honda blue? And if so, what are your thoughts on mechanics and repair shops, even those who specialize in Hondas, that use universal coolants? I realize some coolants don't mix well with other types, so is it best to use the universal green to top off your system instead of the blue if you don't know what type is already in the radiator but can see it's green? Whew. Well then. I'm a little fussy about coolant, actually. I like to use the factory coolant or something that very specifically says this is what it's for. So if you're, just topping off the cooling system, if you had, in this case, genuine Honda Type 2 is the safest choice because chances are that's what's in it. If you're doing a complete drain and refill, any of the compatible blue Asian vehicle coolant should work. For instance, our Volkswagen that we have, I use European-style coolant. The Hyundai we have, I use, it says on the container, Asian-style coolant, and it says for Hyundai and Honda and some others. So I want something. Now, the universal coolants, and I remember talking to the engineers at Prestone years ago, and they said our universal coolant can be used in any car without a problem. The problem is it sort of brings it to whatever the lowest common denominator is. So if your coolant in your car is good for 5 years or 10 years, adding this universal coolant might drop it down to 2 or 3 years. So it's not going to be the same. And that's where it's good to try to use what's in there. So the label on the container is more important than the color. But then again, in a pinch on the road or during some other emergency, anything is better than allowing the engine to overheat. But for routine service, Honda coolant or a quality equivalent, I think would be the best choice. Let's see, this person about 6 months ago, my wife and I bought a 2024 Subaru Crosstrek from a local Subaru dealer. Naturally, they're sending us emails telling us it's time to bring it in for an oil change. They say we'll get genuine Subaru synthetic oil and genuine Subaru oil filter. Since dealerships always charge more than local shops, is it worth it to pay more for genuine parts than it is to go to a local shop and use something like Havoline synthetic? No. As long as you're using the correct weight and grade of oil, you're fine. The oil should meet the viscosity of whatever the specification is listed in the owner's manual. I think for most Subarus, it's GF6A or GF6B, so synthetic oils are acceptable. It's a 0W16 oil, but you can use a 0W20 as an acceptable alternative. As for filters, you can always buy the factory filter online, which I do with my own car. At least I think they are. That's one of my fears now is counterfeit filters. I was looking something. Somebody bought a couple sets of Bosch or Nippon Denso or NGK spark plugs, and they were all counterfeit. They took a ohm meter and measured resistance in what they knew was a factory spark plug, and then measured it with the ones they were buying online, and they were way, way off, which means the car's not going to run right afterwards. So I'm always a little worried. I'm getting a little worried now about buying sort of counterfeit parts that are branded with the name. So far, I've been pretty good. Everything seems to work the way it's supposed to, but I was kind of worried about that. Can you use a quality filter like Wix or Purolator? I think so, without any problems. Can you use Havoline, like they mentioned, Havoline synthetic? Sure you can. I was reading a story today about a oil filter that said, an oil, and it said, a synthetic blend is fine for most cars. You don't need to spend all the money for full synthetic. A lot of cars today, that's a requirement. They require full synthetic. There's no, the Volkswagen that we have that's old, that's 11 years old, requires full synthetic. The one we just got rid of, that was even older, required full synthetic. So there you go. Hey, that music, by the way, Spotify said, I need to make sure it's okay with the author. So, Jesse, okay to use that music, right?
Thumbs up.
All right, good. So that music means we need to go. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car. Thanks to our Kinsman for calling in today. And if you do see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.